to the days that this man just turned 16 and the other guy knew that he finally had a serious contender in those WCS events. In the bottom right side, we're looking at the main base of the young Italian stallion representing Basilisk. It's Reynor.
Fiery and chaotic in his strategies, the Red Zerg, but up here in the top left, known for his stability, his solid, just unstoppable play. Representing Finland and Basilisk Esports, this is Serral.
Now the very fun thing, as they were obviously joking in that video about mind games and all-ins, is that when Reynor initially started defeating Serral a couple of times, when Reynor just turned 16, was closing in on 17, and he was able to get a couple of wins over Serral, it was often indeed Reynor being the crazy aggressor and Serral just trying to survive all-in after all-in. But that kind of changed throughout the history of StarCraft 2. And I actually would say over the last 3 or 4 times that these two have played each other, it's Serral all-inning Reynor a whole lot more than the other way around.
100%. You know, it was always early upgraded Zerglings, sneaky Mutalisk rushes, Nidus Worms, and just crazy builds from Reynor. But he went through a period where he started playing straight up Roach Wars. And he was criticized heavily for it at the time. People were saying, you can't beat Serral at his own game. You can't play standard macro against him. And Reynor said, hey, I'm the whole package. I can do it. And he did actually develop to the point where I often look at their series and I really feel Serral comes in here with sniper builds pretty much every time against Reynor. He very regularly takes the first map, if not the first 2. Because he just comes out with these genius prepared builds, whereas Reynor usually goes in there trying to feel things out, scout, react to what happens. Already, variation in the build order. Serral has opened up with the 15 hatch 15 pool. He's going to have a much later Zergling speed, but this would have kept him incredibly safe if Reynor tried to do a 12 pool.
Yep, it's going to be an awesome best of 5 here between these two that are obviously teammates and have fought alongside each other, representing Basilisk in the WTL, in which both of them have performed well. Serral completely undefeated. Reynor did drop a couple maps here and there, but then he knows that he can always count on that Jonas Hutala to bring home the W. Well, today they are facing one another. I would honestly say this is the first time that they truly play a big match while they're part of the same organization.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating, you know. At first, when they did both join the same team, I was a little bit thrown off by it, but hold that thought. That is an insanely fast layer, Rotterdam.
Yep, and we're going to drop the Roach Warren as well. So there's a couple of things that Serral could do here. We've seen +1 missile attack all-ins in the past, with maybe a little bit of a creep highway, but this could very well turn into some sort of a Nidus build too. There's also a chance that Serral just makes it look like he wants to all-in, but then he's still going to turn it into macro. But one thing is for certain, is that Reynor has a much more normal approach here in Game 1. Basically everything that we just said in the beginning, and Serral's already switching things up and says, I'm going to keep you guessing for the entire series.
You know, this feels like a Mutalisk rush, actually. I was thinking Nidus Worm at first. Actually, no, the Roach Warren's not in the wall, so never mind. I'm a little surprised by this build order, because 35 drones. I guess Roach Speed is probably going to be powering up. It's got to be that or a Nidus Worm, and it is indeed Roach Speed. Perhaps even walking Queens across the map with this, but more drones coming in for Serral. I guess he just wants to scout with an Overseer?
I don't know, it's weird, it's crazy, but it does seem like he's gonna turn this into just a pretty macro-oriented build. He has completely skipped the Zergling speed, correct, Serral, that is?
Yeah. Well, and actually, if you think about it, he saturated his bases very early. With this build order, you get your injects out so fast. If he can scare Reynor enough that Reynor can't really drone the third base, that might be all he's looking for. We have seen Serral feint across with attacks, and then very slowly turn it into a macro game.
Well, the first Zergling of Reynor just got a bit of a scout off. It saw a drone, but it also saw a couple of roaches. It saw 3 roaches even, and for a split second, it felt like it scared Reynor as he fired up a spine crawler immediately. But I think he's going to cancel that spine after he sees that Serral is trying to take a third base. Getting a cancel here with just a couple links would be the first real big W for Reynor in this game. Roaches are here. Reynor is going to commit. Can he get the cancel? Yes, he does. I mean, that's an amazing feeling for Reynor, because that's a small investment, but a very big return.
Spinecrawler does finish there for Reynor. He's up 10 workers. He's being quite greedy. Is Reynor in the face of this? That's not what Serral wanted. I think Serral wanted him to be a little bit safer, but Serral's continuing to hold down that Roach key. Roach speed is about to kick in. Drones kick up behind it. Serral doesn't plan this as an all-in, but it's an incredibly committed attack nonetheless.
And we do have a bit of that autobahn happening in the center of the map. A couple of overlords are dropping creep to make it a bit easier for these roaches to run to the other side of the map. I don't think we're bringing queens, but it's still a lot of army supply already making his way to the other side of the map. Serral's just going for it, grabs a roach, grabs a queen, but he kind of misses that one extra roach for the one shot. So I think he was hoping to deal more damage there a bit quicker, but obviously he's not done yet.
Reynor quickly cancelling some eggs that were about to pop on that third base, catches a few of the drones, trying to run them over. Serral here getting as much damage as he can. Reynor does not have roach speed. He is not as maneuverable. Serral has the numbers. The spine crawler very slow to root.
Yep. Numbers still heavily favoring Serral here. Yes, Reynor does have +1 missile attacks, but to really get something to show for that, you need a bunch of roaches. And Serral's doing a great job in staying out of range of that spine crawler. This hatchery is starting to drop dangerously low. And Serral says, you cancelled my third, I'll kill yours.
Very nice move there for Serral. He's got a 9 worker advantage behind it, and that is getting bigger and bigger as time goes on. Spinecrawler of his own building, just in case he has to defend a counterattack. But Serral's not even that far behind an army supply. And I think we're just seeing the power of this new opening that he's been harnessing. The 15 hatch 15 pool allowing him to double inject up and doing these weird 2-base aggressions, delaying his third base. It's catching all of his opponents off guard. Dark did not know how to deal with it earlier on in the tournament. Reynor here also left in a very tough position, especially on such a small map.
Yep.
Pushing with roaches is hard to deal with.
I think this indeed be a lot easier to figure out if you're the defender who went up to 3 bases on a much larger map like Altitude or Ancient, where it's just a bit easier to keep track of these roaches. But especially with the way that Serral spaced out those overlords and he created that bit of a creep highway for himself in the center of the map, it's like we see everything and we have a hard time figuring out, does he want to go for it or not? So then you can only imagine how difficult it is for the opponents of Serral to figure out when he's actually committing or when he's just building drones.
100%. It's a difficult read there. Reynor's going to come in and see if he can get some drones with the Ling harass. He desperately needs it. He's down 40 army supply right now. Reynor has an equal economy, but 40 less army. He's got extra upgrades coming in, which is nice, but he's got to delay the fight for a few minutes. Serral is not going to give him that time. Serral's +1's kicking in, and he's on his way across the map.
A few minutes is a lifetime in a high-level game of StarCraft 2. Reynor was supply blocked there as well for a split second. It feels that Serral just wants to get Reynor out of here in that first game. The corrosive vials do connect with the spine crawler. The spine is doing whatever it can, but it feels that the Serral's army is just a little too big here. At the moment, they're fighting with even upgrades, and Reynor is forced to tap out. Serral takes a pretty quick 1-0 lead. Obviously, painful for Reynor there to be forced to take a fight while you spend money on that +2 missile attacks, on that second evolution chamber, on +1 carapace, and none of those things came into play.
If I think back to 2021 and late 2020 when Reynor really was just dominating Serral in a lot of their head-to-head, it often started this way, where Serral would just get an easy Game 1 victory off him with a beautifully prepared strategy. And often what would happen is Game 2, he'd get an advantage and he wouldn't be able to close it, and Reynor would claw his way back and flip the series upside down. And this is exactly what I think, Reynor has to do, is just stay calm and reset. He's been down 0-1 to Serral so many times.
I mean, we often talk about greed. Serral was greedy here in the very beginning of this game pick. He went up to a very quick lair, didn't have the Roach one as part of the wall of. Like, if Reynor would have blindly built 20 Zerglings, Serral would have been in all sorts of trouble.
Yeah.
Because he was just building drones, didn't even have Zergling speed, didn't have a wall of. But Serral felt that, Reynor probably won't be that crazy.
You're not going to attack into a 2-base player, right? He just
No.
made that read. He said, I'm going to show you no third base, and I know you're not going to attack into it. It's in hindsight, you look back at the series as Reynor and you're like, oh, you greedy, man. Seriously, I could have punished that super hard, but hindsight's 2020. Serral's got the clever gamble to get himself an advantage in the series. It's a nice way to start things off, especially on the very short rush distance map. That one plays quite differently to pretty much any other map in the pool.
A cheeky Game 1. Let's see what Game 2 will bring to the table as we have loaded into Dragon skills. In the top left side, we're looking at the main base of the Italian, representing Basilisk, down 0-1 in the semi-finals. This is Reynor.
And down here in the bottom right side, a fantastic Game 1. Let's see if we can continue that momentum. Also representing Basilisk, it's Serral.
I wonder if Reynor thinks like, all right, if you're going to be cheeky, then I'm going to be cheeky. And we've already seen a decent amount of Mudas in this tournament. And there is one thing that Serral has been pretty vocal about historically, that he does not enjoy a whole lot in ZVZ. And that is the cheeky Spire builds, where he's being forced to defend against a Zerg that just flies around with Mudas or does a good job in sneaking in a Spire slightly quicker than they're supposed to. Wouldn't be surprised at all to see Reynor make an attempt to go for quick mutas in this game to get it even, get one on the board. But there is a chance that Serral's already preparing for something like that as well, because obviously these two, they know each other very well.
Indeed, there's a lot of anticipating, getting one step ahead. And as Reynor and Serral both said at the start in those interviews, mind games. Whoever can get the edge, the understanding of their opponent's goals can usually be one step ahead. Serral, in the first map, seems to have that advantage, but a prepared build like that, it's a one-off. You don't get to really use that information in the following games at all.
I love how Serral said, nah, I don't think mind games will really come into play in this best of 5. And then in the first game, he just goes for a 2-base lair with the Ro4 in the back of his main base, no wall off, no link speed. I mean, that's pretty damn cheeky.
That's so funny because, Serral's kind of famous for saying, he's like, I don't really get angry. And he's like, oh, I do, actually. If people gamble versus me, I hate when people gamble. That's what he used to kind of say, but I feel like he's become a beautifully calculated gambler over the last few years. Like, he really picks the right time to cut a corner. Nothing is done without intention for Serral. His build's perfectly tailored. Looks like both players have link speed starting up. Interesting to see if they've pulled off gas too much. And just one off gas for Serral and one off for Reynor as well. Very standard openings.
And they're completely mirroring each other so far. So we're expecting to see, obviously, both of them to go up to 3 bases. Neither of them will do something weird, like take the triangle. They will both expand horizontal. And now it's going to be fun to see who drops the Baneling Nest, or if one of the guys tries to be greedy once more and just make a couple links and try to sneak straight into the Roach-Warren. I have the feeling that Reynor is absolutely going to drop the Baneling Nest and is definitely going to try. It seems like both of them are doing that in the end. And this is going to be a fun pick, because this is sometimes where Reynor can get the best of Serral, where, it's a little bit of chaos. We're fighting with links, we're fighting with Banelings, and then suddenly 2 Banelings sneak into the natural. And obviously getting 6 or 7 drones in an early game of ZVZ is monstrous, and most of the time that's enough to close it out a bit later.
Yeah, if Reynor can increase the pace, he can use that speed advantage that he has on just about anyone in the world, and also his unpredictability, something which Serral does sometimes get a bit stiff against Reynor, where if he can't figure out exactly what Reynor's goals are in the game, sometimes Serral starts to second guess himself. For now, of course, we can see both players furiously multitasking, trying to get the scouting information as well as any harassment damage. Serral's hidden 2 Zerglings over there near the grass, ready to potentially morph Banelings. Reynor's coming out with a bit of a flood.
Yep, Reynor already has Banelings morphing, I believe, in the bottom left side on the bridge there. Yep, a couple of Banelings in the center of the map, a couple of Banelings on the left side. So it's Reynor who's going to strike first here. The hatchery is done, whereas Serral, his unit slightly out of position. I do think that Serral's going to be able to save this hatch. It just comes down to the micro. Not a bad start there, I would say, for Serral, because that was a 2-for-1 trade. And Serral also sniped the Baneling there that was trying to run into the natural, and at the same time there are a couple of links somehow in the main base of Reynor finding a bit of damage. Man, Serral doesn't just weather the storm, he even books a little victory there.
Up a couple of workers right now. He's got the extra tech advantage as well. Ro4 and Evo Chamber on the way. Reynor does have an advantage in the +1 upgrade department. That range upgrade coming in. 3rd Queen now starting up as well. But definitely going to be a little frustrated. I could see a slight reaction when he realized those lings had been unattended in his main base, because that was just an oversight for Reynor. If he saw that, he moves the drones, doesn't lose any, goes back to mining, but definitely realizing that Serral's a bit ahead on the multitask.
That's a lot of roaches on the production tab for Serral, as he's going to fire up 9 of them. Reynor only now drops the Roach-Warren. Basically needs to stop building drones immediately, but he's not picking up on this yet. Reynor does not know that Serral plans on being aggressive once more. That's a lot of drones. Reynor is creating a work lead that's, I think, way bigger than it's supposed to be. Reynor is about to get the heads up that this is happening, but it could already be too late. Like, what do you even do here, Pig? You start building spines in the natural, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to pull drones away from his 3rd, try to wall off the natural completely. I think an Evo Chamber in the wall is almost essential. There is no way he defends that 3rd base. Oh, this is a beautiful surprise attack for Reynor. For Serral here, sorry. Reynor does try to get the Banelings, but 3 of them surviving deep in the red.
Reynor is down 22 army supply. Does have 6 roaches on the production tab. One of the queens is a bit exposed, but it will be able to at least safely make it in. It's so hard to fight with drones here, because Serral is not just attacking with roaches. He's got a bunch of Banelings in the mix as well. Reynor, his queens are falling rapidly. All 3 of them have gone down. And the worst thing for Reynor is that the roaches now spawn one by one from different angles. It really starts to feel that this is an army Reynor simply cannot clean up.
Even if he'd walled off, I don't know if he could have held this. This attack was just so well timed, so well disguised by Serral. Reynor did not scout it early enough, and after his initial link, Bane pressure fell flat. Serral counter swings decisively. Man, he's back in Night King form again. That's looking like 2018 Serral today.
He's ice cold. Did you see that look? My goodness, chills all over the body. I mean, Serral played another very clean game. Reynor was the one who was trying to bring the fight to Serral and indeed display some of that amazing speed we know Reynor has with 4 banelings on the other side of the map. It wasn't just the 2 banelings that were morphing into center. He was attacking with 4 banelings and a bunch of links, and Serral handled this perfectly. First, Serral gets a 1-for-2 trade, and then he also keeps eye of his own natural there where he snipes one of the banelings, and a single bane, it can't do anything. It can only soften up drones. So just picture perfect defense by Serral, and Serral immediately realizing like, hey, you're probably going to build a lot of drones behind this because you're the one who made the first investment, so let me counterattack with all these roaches. And just like that, it's 2-0.
A simple 2-0 for Serral, picking his builds very nicely, disguising them and taking advantage of his opponent's habits. They know each other so well, but it does seem that this is often the pattern in the past, is Serral comes in with great plans, really just tailored to take his opponent out. Reynor playing a bit more feel-it-out style. Let's see how it goes. And Serral, I mean, often he struggles in that second map a little bit to close it out. There was no struggle at all. He shut that one out quickly.
Serral's so decisive as well. Don't know if this was part of the plan all along, but there is a good chance that just because he defended it in such a beautiful manner that he says, I have that quick roach one, let me just build even more drone or more roaches than I was supposed to. Obviously did a good job in hiding it, and Reynor simply saw it too late. We saw 8, 9, 10 drones on the production tab. Reynor's lead was way too big to ever be able to muster up a hold. So that means that this man is now in serious trouble in the semifinals of the ESL SC2 Summer Championships. He's down 0-2, but he's been here before, and he does do his best work sometimes when he's in a bit of trouble. Let's see if history can repeat itself. Top right side of Royal Blood, the Italian representing Basilisk. This is Reynor.
In a lead, looking unstoppable, as he has for most of this year, more focused than ever. And I'm telling you, there is not going to be an emotional outburst until he gets that trophy raised up at the end of the day. Put your hands together for Serral.
2-0 lead for the 2-time world champion, as we see both players going hatchery first here in game 3. I mean, probably the most frustrating thing for Reynor is that it felt that almost nothing went his way so far in these first 2 games. He got a cancel on the hatchery with just a couple links on Babylon.
Yep.
You're like, yay! And after that, it really feels that it's been all Serral. Serral basically getting win after win after win on the board. And it's not that Serral has taken a 2-0 lead. It's like he has taken a 2-0 lead without losing a fight.
It's actually massive. That kind of momentum, it can be hard to keep going if you've already used up, your surprise builds, but that last one was just a solid defense into reactive push. Like you said, we don't even know if he planned that from the start. Now we're going into Royal Blood, and he's playing a very straight-up opening so far. Interesting to see Serral kind of blowing out a bit of air of his cheeks there, inflating a little bit. You can tell he's just really trying to maintain his cool calm, not letting himself get distracted. Because that's a big thing. A lot of players get in their own head. They think, ooh, 1 game away from winning. They lose a little bit of focus. You can't give Reynor that opportunity.
No, I think in the past we've seen both of them taking a 2-0 lead against one another, and it's still going the other way. So Serral obviously knows that this is a phenomenal start, has barely broke a sweat, but he's definitely not there yet. Because if he can easily win 2 games quickly in the CVC, there's a good chance that his teammate is able to do the same thing. So he knows that he's going to need the best focus he has from the very beginning till the very end. But so far, absolutely so good for the man from Finland, who's just having a pretty smooth run overall. Has dropped a single map so far in the tournament pick. And
that was because the Queen was slightly out of position when Dark Circling Flood came. And I mean, yes, Serral looked annoyed when it happened, but it was one of those things that just happens sometimes. And we really haven't seen any signs of weakness. Max managed to push Serral kind of hard in the regionals, managed to take a couple maps off him. But even then, it was a 4-2 scoreline at the end of the day. And that's one of the closest series we've seen from Serral recently. He's just so in charge and so controlled in his gameplay.
Yeah, the funny thing is that we came into Katowice obviously looking at Serral as one of the big favorites, and Serral wasn't all that convincing in the group stage. In the end, he did make it through, but it wasn't the same invincible Serral as we are, for instance, witnessing in this tournament. Now, obviously lost to Ragnarok in the playoffs, But after that loss in the playoffs in Katowice, Serral has just been on one hell of a run, and it's really starting to give all of us serious 2018 vibes.
You know, there was a few people out there, I'm not going to say it's the majority, but they were kind of saying after that Ragnarok loss, oh, this is the downfall of Serral, it all goes downhill from here. And I think he saw those comments, Rotterdam, because it lit a fire under him. Ever since Katowice, he has been on a tear like we haven't seen in years. He has just been on another level. Reynor, though, is going to go for that quick +1 range once again. Serral just going forwards with his queens, pushing back the overlords. Very defensive with his zerglings. That's kind of a special characteristic of Serral, is he likes to block his opponent's scouting and not letting Reynor get in at all.
Serral went full Michael Jordan. He took it personal.
Yeah, I mean, he's a man who has a particular sort of drive. If he gets a bit angry over something, I'm telling you, he will not rest until he has fixed whatever he sees the issue is. And that's what Serral's been doing recently. He's going to have a big delay on his upgrade. The Evo Chamber coming in, 3 Overlords building right now at a time for Serral. Ro4's almost done. I think that's a fake upgrade, Kevin.
We'll keep a close eye on it. Reynor is building a few more drones. Serral has kind of stopped building drones, but Reynor also now firing up the lair. The Ro4 isn't that late, right? Compared to last game, the Ro4 is obviously way quicker. But this right here is that moment where Reynor needs to keep on scouting, because it does seem that Serral wants to be an aggressor once more as soon as the first few roaches hit the battlefield. Little scout, that's a lot of drones, by the way, on that base. I wonder if, like, if you're Reynor and you see 8-9 drones there, I don't think your alarm bells will necessarily go off. Because look at this, Serral only even has 13 drones in the natural, making it seem that there is nothing for Reynor to worry about. But now Reynor is circling, will see these roaches, and Reynor should maybe have enough time to just build as many roaches as possible. But it's going to be a very difficult defense once more, as Reynor is down 25 army supply.
Serral cancels +1 range to get more gas. Banelings being morphed on the front line. Zerglings being rallied in behind. It's a giant all-in Roach Baneling attack for Serral. Reynor's up on 60 drones. His +1 will kick in just in time to help defend this, but maybe, oh, it's a little late. He just doesn't have much army. He's so far behind, he's got to buy time. He's got to fall back. Great choice for Reynor there. Delaying this fight is what it's all about.
Yep, every second that goes by, obviously Reynor is going to get some value out of that economic advantage he has created for himself. Serral goes forward, gets a queen, gets a couple of the roaches. At least there is a spine crawler there for Reynor, but Reynor is starting to drop a decent amount of units already as a few more of the roaches of Reynor gets surrounded. Serral obviously needs more, but it's starting to look like he's going to get a whole lot more.
Oh, every time Reynor moves out of that wall, Serral turns on him and surrounds a pack of them. Spinecrawler in the third mineral line is fighting the drones forced off the line. The spine goes down. Reynor has to hold his ground right here, right now. Those drones are useful for tanking. Serral is going to have to pull back a little bit.
This is where obviously the +1 really starts kicking in for Reynor. The lings of Serral are going to die a little bit quicker. There are extra Zerglings showing up. Reynor is bringing over that Spinecrawler that he had left over in the natural. The supplies are closer than they've been for a long time. More drones are being pulled. Reynor needs to pull off the hold of his life here in the semi-finals with his tournament live on the line, but it's starting to look like at least this game will continue, and Reynor has sort of defended.
I mean, Serral's being so annoying with his micro, but I think Reynor's done it, Kevin. Look at that worker gun. He's still up 4 workers. Roach speed on the way. +2 starting in the midst of the fight. What a hold for Reynor.
That is one hell of a hold. I love the way that Serral executed the attack, and I love the way that Reynor defended it. Obviously, that spine in the third base came in clutch. At first, you're like, oh, that's going to be an exposed one, but it really did its job. Made it harder for Serral to just dive into that mineral line, and Reynor did a good job dancing back and forth between the natural and the third base. Obviously, this game far from over, as the work account's pretty much dead even. I mean, Reynor, I would say, definitely has the advantage, but we can't skip the fact that he did lose a bunch of queens.
Indeed, it takes a little while to rebuild there. You can see his work account lagging behind just slightly. It's very similar overall in the economy. It's the advantage on the +2 that I think heavily favors Reynor. If he can find a way to leverage that into a big +2, +1 carapace timing, I mean, that's a massive kill moment for a lot of Zerg vs. Zerg games. Hitting with 2-1 is powerful, and a double upgrade advantage, and I think the army supply should be pretty similar, but if Serral starts droning up his 4th base, that's where he gets in trouble.
That was a hold and a half, man. Very impressive. Down 0-2 in the semifinals, to then stay so calm and cool and composed and make the correct choices with your unit movement, bring that spine over when you need it to. Honestly, very impressive, but Reynor is definitely not there yet. He knows it, but you can see that Serral, for the first time, is also feeling that he could become under some serious pressure. And we see Serral dropping a spine. He's actually going to cancel it. And he's like, yeah, I need a spine. He's like, never mind, I don't need a spine. Well, right now the Roach numbers are somewhat even, as Reynor is not really paying attention. I think he's controlling his units elsewhere. Was a little bit sloppy.
Nice Ling attempt backstab there for Serral. Does catch a few roaches on the bottom right as a result of that. Tunneling Claws is on the way as well as Burrow. A few more drones sneaking their way out. Reynor, though, is committed. He is amassing roaches, but he doesn't actually have an advantage in the army supply yet. And even though he's going to have that double upgrade advantage, it's going to come down to the angle of the fight when it happens. If Reynor just overcommits and shoves into a bad concave, he could actually mess this one up. He's got to be really careful with picking the fight.
And we cannot ignore the upgrades that are going on the side of Serral, as we have Tunneling Claws on the way and Burrow on the way. And that is something that Serral has, blew us away with many times over the years. The multitasking that this man can pull off with roaches in 3-4 different bases. It is a nightmare to play against. Now, obviously, Reynor has gone up against it a couple of times. He's no stranger to it, but it doesn't feel that he's quite preparing yet for that potential Tunneling Claws and Burrow.
Yeah, he wants to kill him, that's why. He's got 2-1, he wants to go. Reynor wants to push it in. He's been sitting on just 61 drones for a while. Serral, though, with great map vision with those Overlords splitting up nicely so far. Lots of Ravages there for Reynor. Can he find a way to push in? Serral, great positioning so far.
Yeah, so far so good for Serral, and there's already a couple of roaches sharking around on the other side of the map. First, it's a few Lings running into the natural. Reynor definitely not getting the start to these fights that I think he was dreaming of, despite the fact that he is 2 upgrades ahead. He's having a hard time finding an engagement that he wants to go for, right? That he's very fond of. Serral is just not giving him any openings, and this is where Serral will already start trying to kill some drones. There are some Overseers morphing though for Reynor.
Oh yes, but the roaches just snuck it by. He sees it a few seconds too late. I'm pretty sure Reynor thought he was a little further ahead after that hold earlier in this game, Rotterdam. Now he finds himself unable to push Serral out of the game. The roaches are tearing up his backline. He's going to just shove the front.
Yep, seems like Reynor is not bothered by defending. He's barely defending. He is just focusing on this attack. Serral's got a bunch of units coming in from the top right side, so it will be a bit of a surround, but it does feel that Reynor has more, and obviously he still has a bit of an upgrade lead. It's that +1 carapace that's coming in rather handy, but Reynor needs to do an insane amount of damage because he's taking a serious beating at home. 7 drones have gone down, and Serral still has plenty of roaches on the other side of the map.
Oh, he piles down the eggs on that base, canceling about 5 roaches in production. Great move there for Reynor. Moving up into Serral's ramp, he says, I'm going to turn this into a defensive position. If you want to defend your main base, you've got to come up a ramp into my concave. He's got to do a good job of defending that, but it's very hectic, hard for both players to micro right now. Reynor's got some good damage, but he's taken a ton of damage at home. I'm not really sure if any player's ahead right now.
It's so crazy as well, right? Because obviously Reynor has a great spot on top of this ramp, but it also means these units are stuck. Serral knows it. Serral thinks about finally cleaning this up before he would lose a few more drones. Nice target fire on a couple of the Ravages there, but Serral will successfully clean up all these units of Reynor in his main base. And that's honestly pretty impressive, as this all started with an army supply advantage for Reynor. Look at the numbers now. It's actually Serral who's got a slightly bigger bank and has a little upgrade advantage as well.
I love the way Reynor chose to counterattack there, but Serral handled it with poise. A lot of players would have cracked under the pressure. Serral did lose his Baneling Nest, but he didn't lose the Evo Chamber. He's got his +2. He's only down 1 upgrade, up a handful of workers, and army supply.
We cannot ignore the fact that Serral is a 4-base Zerg pick, and Reynor is a 3-base Zerg, and that's obviously going to matter, especially 12 minutes into Legacy of the Void. You won't have too many resources left in your main base, and even your natural will start running a little dry. So it's really important for Reynor that he gets more done soon, because Serral at this moment is not just outmining him, is already richer and will only continue to grow quicker.
And Reynor lost all of his queens in that, while Serral kept a few of them alive. So Reynor's been rebuilding queens in the midst of this. That's not something you want to be doing at this stage of the game. Look at this beautiful management of the army by Serral. Reynor cannot force the fight here. He's got to be careful. Big Biles landing.
Serral's unit positioning is just excellent defensively, making it so hard for the aggressor, even if they have a better army, if they have a bigger army, to really go for it, because nobody wants to take a bad fight and run into a concave when you feel like you're ahead. But Reynor obviously knows that the more time that goes by without anything happening in favor of him, the more trouble he will be in, because he knows that he's down a base, and there it is, the first Spire of the series, but it is going to be a 3-base Spire.
That's a desperation Spire is what that is, Rotterdam. He needs a 4th hatchery. You've been mentioning it for a while. Reynor's income is starting to drop. Serral's is continuing to grow, and Serral dropping a Spire of his own.
Which I think is really smart, right? Because Serral probably is asking himself right now, what can I still lose to? If we're both working with Roaches and Ravages, but I'm maxed out and I'm just positioning my unit successfully, and I've got a base more than you, what's the Hail Mary play? Well, often it's went behind, go for a Spire in this matchup, and Serral's just like, alright, then I can go for a Spire as well. We can build the same units the beauty of a mirror matchup. He could even go for Corruptus if that's something that he would really fancy here, but I love the call there by Serral. Without scouting it, I believe he's just asking himself, what can I lose to? And if Mudas is the answer, make sure you don't die to Mudas.
And look at the way he's defending. His bank is building up. Serral happy to sit on 52 drones for now. Doesn't want to take any risks. He senses that Reynor has a bit of urgency behind him, that Reynor is trying to force the issue. With Reynor's 4th hatchery coming down, that's going to give him some follow-through, but it definitely feels like Serral is just waiting for Reynor to make more mistakes.
Yeah, but I think that Serral's also realizing that, wait a minute, this army in the center of the map hasn't grown for a long time, and it's not like you've got any other crazy run-bys happening, so I think Serral's going to try to go for a bit of a surround. As Serral realized that his army is bigger and better here. Reynor needs to run back. A lot of the Ravages are going to take some serious damage. He will buy some time with the corrosive balls and in the end get out of there with a few. It is going to be Mutalisk versus Mutalisk. Neither of them upgrading anything at the moment at the Spire, but this is really where that economic advantage that Serral has been working with for a little bit should pay off.
And he's on 8 gases right now, which is huge. The Mutalisks are massing for Serral. He's got +1 flyer carapace as well. Reynor flies in, but he's in for some bad news. When he sees Serral's Mutalisks, he's going to feel his heart sink.
Couple of very big corrosive balls there, though, for the first time. Reynor finally getting some good value out of these Ravagers, and he's just going to go for it. He says, I have Mudas here, you don't have Mudas yet. And Reynor is actually taking a pretty spectacular fight here right before the Mudas of Serral show up. And Reynor's going to see them. I guess the best thing that Reynor could do is disengage. Reynor at first thinks that he's got more Mudas, but he doesn't have more Mutalisks.
He's got to get out of there. Those Mutalisks getting chased right now. Serral up 3 Mutalisks, and that number is growing. He's now got double the Mutalisk count on the map. The Ravages of Reynor, easy pickings. He's desperate. He says, I've got to lure those Mutas home. He's going to go for a backstab and try to pull him away. A desperate move, but it does find some drones.
I actually kind of like it. Reynor immediately realizing that he's probably not going to catch up in the Muta department, that Serral will have more gas to work with. So you just kind of try to suicide them there, keep them at home. Like, Reynor knows that these Mutas are dead. But the more time he can buy for some of these Hydras to come out, the more time he can get some Spore Crawlers online, the better. And these Mutas are still finding some damage, right? They found a couple drones at the 3rd base. Serral's obviously aware of what's happening, and he's going to try to end it.
Oh, that is a very scary Roach Ball. The Bile's holding you back. Great transfuses from Reynor, keeping his few Ravagers alive for a second longer. Hydralisks starting to come out. They don't have many upgrades just yet, but they are 2-2, so the Mutalisks don't really stand up well to those Hydras.
Yep, the Ravager count of Serral does not feel as high as it once upon a time was. It does seem that Reynor will stabilize, and then in a weird way you start kind of liking the Hydras, right? Hydras can be pretty good. Serral is going for a very ambitious dive on a few Hydras here. I mean, the Muta count is high, but that still felt crazy. He kind of gets away with it.
He does get away with it, as you said, a bit crazy because 2-2 Hydras wreck Mutas, but without range, without movement speed, and being outnumbered is a big problem. The Mutas coming in and now dealing big damage. Serral's been down on workers for a little while here, but I like this pullback for him. The Roach Ravager turns to fight. Reynor dodges the Biles. Serral might have to pull these Mutalisks home. Yeah. He's got to be careful.
I kind of feel that these Mutas would be very useful at home, but Serral just feels that he doesn't need them. Gets that Spore Crawler, is going to get a few more drones. Could take out the Hydralisk then, and that's obviously a big problem. I don't think that was quite the right amount of Hydras to fight. Maybe Reynor's got a few more Hydras coming in. At least those Queens have some energy. The supplies are awfully close. This is an exciting ZVZ, the kind of ZVZ that we were hoping for between these two. But it does feel that these 16 Mutas are a serious problem for Reynor.
Bouncing around the back of this. I mean, Reynor skipped a Spore in the natural and main. You might think, what a silly guy, why'd he do that? But it's because they don't have much money. It was a tactical choice saying, it's okay, my Hydras should be able to defend. Serral making that initial dive on the Hydralisk count opened this up. This was a fantastic piece of killer instinct. And Serral now, he says, look, I'm just going to go back to Master Roach Ravager behind this, but these Mutas are going to be a constant problem.
Yep, the Mutas are finding a lot of value. Reynor has dropped to 44 drones. Serral's also only working with 45, right? Despite the fact that they are on 4 bases. Obviously, the drone count is not that high. Their lair is right now going to be in a bit of problems, or a bit of trouble, and I don't think the Queen's going to save it. Reynor is just sending it. He says, I think I have enough anti-air to make sure that I can take a fight on the other side of the map, as he is going for it. Serral's all out counterattacking, and obviously Reynor needs to make sure he doesn't get eliminated in this game.
Oh, this means Serral's just going to try and do a fighting retreat at home. Reynor splits his army to come back and help defend. His army being split up means there's not that many Roaches on the front. Hydras are fragile. You've got to be careful, Reynor.
Still that upgrade advantage for Reynor. That's important to keep in mind. Serral has a few more units out on the map, but the units are also all over the place. More drones falling, bases falling, an insane game 3 here between Reynor and Serral. Serral does have time on his side, he knows it, but Reynor's got a flank, and Reynor probably feels that if he can just get one decisive fight, maybe that's where the Hydras can make the difference.
Reynor is up all over Serral's bases now, but it feels like Reynor's economy has already crumbled. The army supply, 10 in the lead for Serral. Some of that's in Mutalisks, which aren't the most effective. This is a good split of the army. Reynor's taken out all the production and tech. The question is, are there any drones on the map? Reynor might be eliminated if he's not careful.
Reynor has 14 drones, but I believe pretty much all of them are in the natural, and this is definitely something to keep in mind, because in the end of the day, in StarCraft 2, if you have no more buildings, you will automatically lose the game. Most of the time, it doesn't come down to that. But Reynor needs to make sure that he will not lose all of his production facilities, or any building for that matter. Because he needs to be careful. These Mutas are doing their thing. Obviously, Mutas do shine in base trade scenarios, Pick.
Yes, they do. Very mobile. The Hydras are going to go in there and try and defend that hatchery. Looks like they are going to keep it alive for now. So Reynor still technically can mine off of that one base. He's got some roaches on the other side of the map. You don't want to get those trapped.
That's a big fight right here. It doesn't feel that they were quite paying attention, at least not Serral at first, as he did eat a corrosive ball. Serral probably sees all these roaches from Reynor that were still in the natural, and he's like, if I can take out 5 or 6 units, because we're kind of reaching the game where every single unit that falls will probably never be rebuilt.
Oh, getting 2 Ravagers, a Hydra, and another couple of roaches. Serral with some fantastic Muta sniping. He's down to 14 Mutalisks, but they've already paid for themselves and then some. Look at the army supply. That's all the value these Mutas have been gathering.
Yeah, but Reynor's just trying to get a couple of Spore Crawlers up at home to make sure that he won't be eliminated, but Reynor obviously knows at this point that this is not heading his way. He needs to make something happen. Does get a Muta there for free. I think Reynor's just going to collect all of his units at this point and try to make the magic happen. That one big final game-deciding fight on the other side of the map. He's down 18 roaches. It's going to be incredibly tough. Down 18 roaches and 4 Ravagers. I don't even know where Serral got these units from.
Hydras are good, but I don't know if they're that good, Kevin. This is going to be a hard fight for Reynor. I don't think he has groove spines either on those Hydras, so I believe they're only 5 range. Here we go. Nice angling for Serral, and the corrosive biles are such a problem. Reynor's looking for a surround. He's going to come in with a flank from the left and the right at the same time. He knows it's now or never. He's got to make something happen, but Serral slips away, dropping corrosive biles on him as he goes, and that is an unstoppable move. Serral just will not let himself get cornered. He's just going to chip away at him and rip Reynor down.
The unit movement of Serral is just picture perfect, making it impossible for Reynor to get the fight that he's looking for. These Ravagers really doing their thing, and this is it. The Hail Mary desperation move from Reynor. But Reynor knows that's not going to do it. GG.